If you have a positive mindset and you're focused on what's going to happen, it allows you to be persistent because you really believe it's going to happen. If you aren't positive and you don't believe it's going to ultimately happen, it's never going to happen. The lonely journey of the CEO is really realized on this early stage of the businesses.
Alrighty, hello everyone and welcome to the Deal Maker Show. So today we have a really awesome founder, founder that, it's unbelievable, the amount of times that he's done it, like the latest, company, a rocket ship, he's taken public and a really remarkable journey. So again, all the good stuff on the building, scaling, financing, and exiting too, because he's had previous exits too that we're going to be discussing. But I find that you should all brace yourself for a very inspiring conversation. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest today, Eric Remer. Welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate you for having me today. Looking forward to it.
So originally born in Michigan. So give us a walk through memory lane. How was life growing up over there?
Life was good, grew up on the lakes, played hockey, played some baseball, and, had a really great childhood. Was good family, great brother and sister, and was kind of blessed with a really nice childhood.
How do you go from, because obviously there you studied to in the University of Michigan, but from there you go into investment banking before entering the venture world. So why investment banking out of all things?
Pretty random. I was a history major with no finance and accounting background, and started interviewing for jobs out of school, and kind of a little bit random. The year prior in the summer, I ended up getting an internship at the World Bank, and so that kind of popped into the investment banking screens. And I started getting interviews, and Alejandro, I could know less. I was so damn clueless. I didn't even know what an investment bank was when I started interviewing with them. And through the process, what I realized was I was talking to a lot of smart people. They were asking good questions. And as I kind of figured out the game that they were playing, I thought it'd be a really great opportunity if I was able to get in. And so got a job at Kidder Peabody, which no longer exists, but at the time was a nice size investment bank. And it really became a business 101 for me. My father was a physician. Mother was kind of small little entrepreneur, but I had no business background or no business sophistication. So it really started as a platform to learn about business and allowed my entrepreneur kind of mindset to grow with some real base of knowledge.
So what was that moment like where you were like, okay, it's time, let's go, and you got started with iBehavior?
Yeah. Well, prior to that, I had a little entrepreneurial bug in college. I started my first company. I started a flower selling company. We imported flowers from Miami. We thought it was an amazing idea. We had a buddy who went to the University of Miami, sent truckloads of flowers to us for Valentine's Day, and we thought would sell, undercut the market and sell it really well. And it was my first entrepreneurial opportunity to realize that shit's harder than you think it is. And we did sell, 300 dozen roses, made $0, and worked our ass off. So it was kind of my entry into understanding that you can build something out of nothing. So when I was right after I had left the investment bank, I had gotten together with a group of people that were focused on. There was a company called Abacus Direct out there, and Abacus Direct was ultimately sold to DoubleClick for a couple $2 billion. And what Abacus Direct had done was, consolidate the marketplace of kind of direct marketers, because we laugh now about e-commerce. Everyone buys something online. I literally bought, this morning something on Amazon. It's a normal thing, but in early 90s, only 30% of the U.S. population was willing to buy something sight unseen, meaning, in a catalog or something of that nature. So you might be the right demographic. You may fit exactly perfect into that buying, the person that should buy from this catalog. But if you weren't willing to buy sight unseen, you were going to be a wasted catalog to that group. So these businesses called cooperative databases, which Abacus built, started to proliferate. And we started iBehavior to really focus on helping not only the offline world, but really online world as well, because at that time, e-com was starting to really explode. So we started iBehavior. I met with a group of people. They were focused on this kind of, direct marketing for, online players. I had just spent some time in that online space. And as we came together, we started iBehavior. And iBehavior ultimately, grew to, we had an online division focused on that kind of e-com space, and an offline division, which is more of a traditional cooperative database, helping direct marketers target consumers more effectively.
So then let's talk about iBehavior. Ultimately, quite the successful outcome. You guys basically broke that into two pieces. And it ended up being two transactions. I believe for 100 million a pop. I mean, how do you grow a business? To a level where instead of doing the typical acquisition, process with the whole entity, you end up breaking it into two pieces and selling it to two reputable companies. How did that work out?
Yeah, like everything in life, it's rarely a direct line. It's definitely not up and to the right. We had many challenges along the way, but as the business kind of evolved, the offline and the online divisions were really serving different marketplaces, and we went to market to sell the whole thing. And one of the buyers, which ended up being Akamai, who wanted the online division, was much more interested, and they really only wanted the online piece of the business. And the price they were paying was almost very close to what other companies were asking for we're going to pay for the whole company. So we went through the kind of process, which is some tax complications and stuff, of breaking up the business, sold to Akamai that online division. I think it was for just under $100 million. And then we still own the offline division. So a couple of years later, we built that up and then sold that separately to, at the time, was an ad agency called Young and Rubicon, who had a kind of data group within that entity.
Now, what kind of visibility do you think that gave you into deal making? Because obviously here you got, the full cycle, visibility, and not only in one transaction, but in two. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of dabble that in investment banking, so I kind of saw the world of M&A and deal making a little bit. But being on the seller side when you're selling a company, and everyone sees deals that get closed. Nobody sees the process of actually going through the deal. And I know we'll get to it, but at EverCommerce, my current business, we've acquired 53 companies over the last 10 years, and knowing what I know now based on buying 53 companies versus what I didn't know then, you think these transactions are going to be pretty straightforward, and they rarely are. The buyers go in with good intentions. They rarely go in with full conviction. So there's a lot of diligence is real, and deals break up all the time for a variety of reasons. And they go, it's not a straight line. They go through, twists and turns to get to the end. And I think it was, for me, going through that for the first time, I think it was more complicated than I thought it was going to be. But getting to the end of it is always a real nice thing.
Now, in your case, what happened after that is you got started with apartment moves, under a Conclave Group, and that ended up kind of like evolving all the way into what, basically what you're doing now, with EverCommerce. So walk us through what that journey was, because, it sounds like you were going into one single, into one path, and then, that path kept transforming into a different path.
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I left iBehavior, we had 100 million households of data, but what marketers couldn't target effectively was they couldn't get good data on apartment renters because it was such transient, nature of the group. So I started this platform called Apartment Moves, which distributed, new mover moving guides to apartments, nationwide. We were in all 50 states, and we had an English and Spanish version. We distributed 2 million English, 500,000 Spanish. And the focus was getting advertisers access to this transient marketplace through 15,000 properties that we had kind of built up. Really interesting platform. It was growing, we were profitable, but it couldn't scale. And the reason it couldn't scale at the time is most of the marketers, although they couldn't get to this demographic, it wasn't a demographic that was spending a ton of money. And so we couldn't get enough advertisers to support the scale of that business. So I sat down with the properties and said, what else can we do for you guys? You guys like this product. What else? What are your other challenges? And they said, well, we're having a real hard time collecting rents. And we know there's an automated way that can be done. Can you help us collect our rents more effectively? And so I knew nothing about that. And as I started looking in the marketplace, there was several companies kind of doing some of this, early stage of kind of automated rent collection in apartments and other related stuff. And But what I realized was apartments and renters looked very similar to a lot of other service-based businesses, collecting a similar amount of money on a monthly basis, on a recurring basis, and nobody was really providing those tools to that marketplace. E-com was big, obviously retail was big, but nothing for that service-based business. So that's when I started, kind of evolved Apartment Moves into PaySimple. And PaySimple was created really to focus on helping service-based businesses build, collect, manage, and ultimately grow their business. Because prior to something like this, if you were a service-based business, you could be anything. It could be a plumber, a therapist. You would have to go and create maybe have an online tool like a VeriSign or something like that, just an online connector. And then you had to go get a credit card account. You had to go get an ACH account. And you really were just able to do transactions. There was no, management of your customers. There was no kind of integrated kind of workflows for that type of marketplace. So that's what we started PaySimple for, really multi-vertical, horizontal platform that was, focused on helping that service-based business collect their money more effectively. What I saw, business was doing really well. We got up to about, 60 plus million of revenue, very profitable, growing well. But what I saw on the market was an opportunity to consolidate some verticals because the market had become much more verticalized and even micro verticalized. So for example, if we had 1,000 field service contractors, think of them like a plumber, electrician, HVAC guy, and I wanted to get 5,000, 10,000, or today at EverCommerce, we have over 300,000. We just didn't have the workflows. That could be dispatching, inventory management of the truck. Because PaySimple was a horizontal platform, you just couldn't be all things to all people. So as I looked at the marketplace, what I saw was two main things. One, there was a ton of fragmentation within the verticals we're looking at. And then secondly, nobody was really consolidating the marketplaces to provide these kind of end-to-end solutions to these service-based businesses in the vertical. So in 2016, I sold the majority of the business of PaySimple to Providence Strategic Growth. One, it was a nice exit. So that was a positive thing for my investors and myself. But secondly, PSG really had a vision of helping us consolidate these markets through using M&A to buy really great vertical niche softwares within the verticals we wanted to go after. So we can provide that, I call it that last mile vertical software, that system of action within HVAC, within plumbing, within landscaping. So we can not just have this horizontal platform to help these businesses, but give them exactly what they needed based upon the needs of that specific vertical. So that was the launch of EverCommerce from PaySimple, focused originally on three main verticals. So we had home services, which evolved into EverPro, health services, which evolved into EverHealth, and then our health and wellness vertical, which is EverWell. And think about that as salon and spas. What we also realized was that's great to provide that last mile vertical software, but if we could integrate the tools that these businesses needed to be more effective, because these are small businesses. We're talking about, 1 to 10, employees, 1 to 10 trucks on the road, a lot of single op, type of providers. So what can we do to make their lives easier? That was really the vision. How do we simplify and empower the lives of our customers? So we integrated payments into the solution, marketing solutions, customer engagement solutions. So as they utilize that core software, they had already an integrated suite to provide more value to their customers.
So I guess for the people that are listening to get it, what ended up being the business model of EverCommerce? Like how do you guys make money?
So EverCommerce, is a, SaaS platform, vertical SaaS platform focused on, again, helping those service-based businesses. So we provide, vertical SaaS, collecting, monthly payments on our vertical SaaS. And integrated payments is really the top two, ways we make money. So we collect money on the payments that we provide, as well as the vertical SaaS solutions. We have customer engagement as well as marketing services as well. That's a much smaller portion of the business, but 90+% of the revenue is generated from pure SaaS and payments.
I know that the deal done with AMEX, was a significant milestone for you guys. How so?
Early on, this was in the early days of kind of PaySimple. We built this really nice business and we were kind of growing the business, and we had kind of got in touch with the guys at American Express that were looking to provide more value to their small business customers. They had over 5 million small business customers that they wanted to provide, more integrated value to their, credit cards that they can say, listen, if you're a member of, AMEX small business customers, you also get X, Y, and Z. So we partnered with those guys, created a product called Accept Pay. They private labeled our solution. And at one point, 80% of our new business was coming from the AMEX, customer base. And so growing the business, through American Express, integrated partnership, they made an investment into the business as well. And at that point, as an entrepreneur, you're thinking, game over. These guys are going to buy us for hundreds of millions of dollars. It's going to be all great. Until you get the phone call from your partner over at American Express that says, Eric, we just, as we do as a large organization, business is going fine with our partnership, but we've decided to shift gears and we're going to shut down the program. And I said, well, that sucks. When is that going to happen? And this was end of March of, I forget the exact year. In 1 week, April 1st, the program's going to get shut down. And remember, 80% of my new business was coming from that channel at that point in time. So it was definitely a oh shit moment. And I was on vacation with my family, flew back to, Denver where we're based, and had heart to heart with my team and said, listen, we need to make changes. We can't operate the same way we're operating, because at the time we had really neglected some of the core direct business because so much of the new business was coming to support the American Express deal. So that was on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, worked through it. On Monday, we had to lay off 30% of our staff. We just couldn't afford it to keep them with so much business, being gone, and refocus the entire business on, PaySimple Direct. And, as things go, that partnership, someone once told me this is the best piece of advice I ever got. Someone once said, listen, there's never one big deal, never one big partnership, never one big customer that's going to change the trajectory of the business. It's all the little things you do every single day that you look back 5-6 years from now and say, wow, we've created a really amazing organization. And that was my moment of like, we thought American Express was going to be our savior. And what ultimately ended up happening was it really laser focused us on, we have to build this ourselves. We have to figure out our customer dynamics, our churn dynamics, our ROIs, our LTV to CACs, all the things you need to do to be effective. It took us about 18 months to rebuild the kind of, the same business model in terms of the number of new customers we're having, and then ultimately exceeded that quite a bit. And pivoted us to really focus on that direct channel and really kind of went away from that partnership mindset. And it was incredibly painful, ended up being an incredible positive thing for the business, but it was an awakening for myself to realize no one's going to solve your problems except yourself.
So then, in this regard too, I mean, you guys, you alluded to it, as well. You guys raised $650 million. I mean, it was mainly for doing a recap, but that was prior to IPO, I guess. How was the journey of raising that money? And then also, how was the journey too of going public? That's quite the achievement too.
Yeah, many entrepreneurs out there know, raising capital is, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince. I've kissed hundreds in my day, and yeah, you're going with a smile and you talk to a lot of people. I've been very fortunate, specifically in this business. I've had 3 main partners, and they've all been honestly incredible partners, both from a just human being standpoint, but also helping us grow. Our original partner we brought on was a group called Susquehanna, out of Philadelphia. And, they helped us early on in PaySimple really take the next step in our business. They sold out completely when Providence Strategic Growth came in 2016. And PSG, they have been as good of a partner as you can imagine. They helped us, our entire strategic mindset of the M&A. They helped us with, a lot of our growth trajectory and things we were doing. And also, I don't say this lightly, also genuinely good people. And several years after we brought on PSG, the business was growing really well. And we really needed the next level of investor to help us focus on the scale of the business. The business was reaching over $500 million in revenue. Needed to get somebody that knew that next stage of growth, what that looked like. And so we were focused on real to large cap guys. And we were, again, extremely fortunate to bring in the guys at Silver Lake who have had tremendous success in, scaling software technology at the level that we were at that point in time. And so they invested in 2019, mostly recap in terms of what they came in for, but they've been incredible partners for us also. And they really helped us set the stages for going public from their experience. They've done this many times prior, and they helped us, quite a bit in that process. And again, I don't say this lightly, the guys that have been working with us from the Silver Lake team, just genuinely good human beings. So I've been fortunate. Doesn't mean everything's gone amazing. Doesn't mean we don't agree to disagree and don't have challenges along the way. But my team, my investors, and the board in general have been incredibly supportive of the business. And I think a lot of it is because we were pretty selective in terms of who we wanted to work with. There's a lot of money out there, but money is energy. And what kind of energy do you want in your organization? Because that's going to determine a huge amount of your success going forward. Is there alignment? Is there harmony? Is there disharmony? Is there misalignment? Those types of things they can rip a company apart. You've done enough of these interviews to know that. I mean, bad investors can, really mess up the trajectory of an organization. And we've been fortunate to date. So, in early early 2020, the business was doing really well. As COVID kind of happened, we were performing really well through COVID, and we had a lot of diversification. Businesses was continually growing. We were very profitable. As 2021 hit, getting through that in a way that was much more positive than we had expected. We had a lot of scale at that time. And the markets, if you remember, were just wide open. They were just, on fire. So we had, all the big banks coming to us, telling us, the values we're going to go public at, the opportunities for us to utilize that capital to continue to buy more organizations, and also to up-level our talent was really the three main reasons we decided to go that path. So by mid to late Q2 of 2021, the market started to get a little more choppy. So when we were going to go out, we were being talked about, real big numbers, $8-10 billion market caps of what we're doing. But Tommy we went out in that kind of, $4 or $5 billion market cap of July 21. And the week we went out was literally the busiest week in the history of NASDAQ. So more companies went public that week than any other week in NASDAQ's history. And that's not actually a good thing, because that means you get lost in the shuffle, which we did to quite a bit. So it was a successful IPO. Goldman, JP Morgan co-led the deal. We raised just under $500 million, traditional IPO. 4 months later, prior to us doing our kind of secondary and being able to diversify our investors, in kind of Q4 of 21, we had a tech market crash. And when the tech market crashed, it really limited our ability to, do a secondary, for the PE guys to sell down. And then we got stuck like a lot of earlier, 2021 platforms, just liquidity float issues. So I've learned a lot. There's been positives and negatives. The technical aspect of being public is something that I didn't really fully understand. But like everything, there's learning opportunities and growth opportunities in everything you do.
I mean, looking back, would you have ever thought that you would build a $2 billion company?
No, not day one. I think as I started going, that was really the goal. I think when PSG came in 2016, we had literally sat there and I said, I think this could be $1 billion company. And Mark Hastings at the time said, Eric, I think this could be a multi-billion dollar company. And that was the first time I really believed that was a possibility. And the focus has been, from that point forward, how do you continually build scale, provide more value to our customers, and build something that could be really, long lasting and, provide incredible value to the entire ecosystem.
So if you were to go to sleep tonight and you wake up in a world, Eric, where the vision of the company is fully realized, what does that world look like?
That's a great question. It's different today than it would have been a year ago, because, today I would tell you our business is I wasn't thinking about this 18 months ago, but today we're a fully AI-focused, AI-first organization providing integrated value at the highest level to our customers. And so that means not only utilizing AI across the entire organization so we can be more efficient, how we provide our services and our software to our customers, but providing integrated AI within each of our product offerings to allow our end users, our service-based small customers, to have simplified tools, simplified ways they can utilize our software to become even more successful in their businesses. And so when I see the vision, I wouldn't say it's we're that far away, but if I could stop the world for 12 months and wake up 12 months later, kind of the question, it would be fully integrated. The value add within the software itself would be all there, so we could providing the highest level of value to our customers. And that has been an evolution. That is not something I would have thought about 18 months ago. But the really cool thing, Alejandro, is we are doing what I envisioned we were doing. If you listen to us, 15 years ago, I would say our goal as an organization is how do we simplify and empower the lives of small business owners? How do we serve those businesses that serve us every single day? And you look at what we are today. We have over 700,000 small business customers around the world utilizing one or multiple of our product offerings. And are we doing everything we should be doing? No, we could be better. We could always be better. We could always provide more value. We could always provide better service. But at a core level, on a daily basis, our focus to simplify and empower the lives of small business owners, I think we're doing that. And how do we do it better? Again, integrate AI more effectively, provide even better value in our software, and provide even higher level of service to our customers.
Amazing. So Eric, imagine I now put you into a time machine and I bring you back in time to that moment where you were coming out of the University of Michigan, or maybe, like when you were giving your notice at the investment bank. And let's say now you're thinking about starting your own business, but you're able to show up right there on the spot and give that younger Eric one piece of advice before launching a business. What would that be and why, given what you know now?
That's another great question. I would tell myself two things. One, I tell other people. I think the importance of positive mindset, persistence in no matter what whatever's gonna come your way, and your ability to overcome the obstacles that happen. And I think those three things kind of go together, because if you have a positive mindset and you're focused on what's going to happen, it allows you to be persistent because you really believe it's going to happen. And then ultimately overcoming the obstacles. If you aren't positive and you don't believe it's going to ultimately happen, it's never going to happen. You interview enough CEOs. The lonely journey of the CEO is really realized in those early stages of the businesses, because we do not know. I'll speak for myself. I did not know, as I'm hiring this person who's leaving XYZ organization, if we're going to make it. In the back of my mind, I'm like, holy shit, this person's coming to join this organization, and I don't know if this is going to work. And as people have doubts, about the organization, they look to you as a CEO. And if you aren't fully convicted and fully positive and fully believe that you're going to overcome whatever is going to be your way, the business doesn't exist. You can't hold the energy for that organization. And so, that's the part that, there was many times I looked around and said, everyone's believing in me, but I'm looking around, who am I believing in? Because I don't know if this is going to work or not, And so it's those three things that are really a main focus. And I'll repeat the story I said earlier. This was from one of my early investors in iBehavior. They had said that thing to me about, don't focus. There's no one big deal or one big partnership or one big anything that's going to change the business. And it's the things you're going to do every single day, little by little, that you're going to look back and be like, we created a really amazing organization. And I think the mistakes I made early on were really focused on looking for big partners that were going to help us solve our own problems. Focused on areas outside of ourselves to build what we needed to build to be ultimately successful. So those kind of combination of things, I would say, it's going to be all right, but it's not going to be straight and to the right. I'll tell you that. There's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way.
No kidding. So Eric, for the people that are listening that would love to reach out and say hi, what is the best way for them to do so?
It's Eric at EverCommerce.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well, at Eric Remer. I started a podcast, which is called Business Underdog, which is on anywhere you could find your podcasts. And real quick, the vision of Business Underdog, which I started it to really celebrate our customers. So when you think about what you're doing, you're celebrating those businesses like my business that has reached a really interesting level of scale, multi-billion-dollar unicorn status, and those are awesome. My focus is really on that plumber who was just a plumber working for some group and decided to take that risk and go on his own. And now he's got 10 trucks on the road. He's got a multi-million-dollar business supporting his family and his community. And I want to celebrate those business underdogs that have really created awesome businesses across these service-based categories. And there's stories of overcoming, there's stories of, employee challenges, all the things that we deal with at big companies, and they're dealing with without funding at a scrappy level, and have really done an amazing job. So check out Business Underdog as well.
Amazing. Well, Eric, thank you so much for being on the Dealmaker Show today. It has been an absolute honor to have you with us.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on today. Thanks so much.